All these activities are merely games with no real outcomes. The US exerts significant influence over the EU at a high level. Despite the discussions, writings, and speeches by Macron and Germany, there will ultimately be no significant changes. War has become a lucrative industry, with NATO serving as the US primary avenue for weapon sales, perpetuating conflicts that instill fear in countries like Germany, France, Italy, Spain, and others, prompting them to purchase more weapons from the US military complex. While I appreciate your passion, I tend to view the broader perspective. Macron and the US initiated the Ukrainian campaign through promises, yet Macron now seems relegated to mere rhetoric. Despite potential arms shipments and deployments, they will likely be futile against the Russians. Macron and Boris Johnson are depicted as pawns of the Rothschilds, inadvertently obstructing peace efforts, resulting in over 600,000 Ukrainian casualties. Arms suppliers reap immense profits, while the Russians capitalize on soaring oil and gas prices. In the end, it's the Ukrainians and taxpayers who suffer the consequences. Macron is a big talker and a comedian like Zelensky. In the complex geopolitical landscape of the 21st century, the relationship between the United States and the European Union (EU) has been a subject of scrutiny and speculation. Historically, the EU has maintained a degree of autonomy from its transatlantic ally, but recent events have raised questions about the extent of this independence. The current situation, particularly in light of the Ukrainian crisis, highlights the intricate dynamics at play. The EU finds itself grappling with the delicate balance between its own interests and the influence of the US on matters of global security and diplomacy. Since the annexation of Crimea by Russia in 2014, Ukraine has been a focal point of tension between East and West. The EU, along with the US, has condemned Russia's actions and imposed sanctions in response. However, the effectiveness of these measures has been called into question, as they have yet to bring about a resolution to the conflict. Meanwhile, leaders within the EU, most notably French President Emmanuel Macron and German Chancellor Angela Merkel, have attempted to engage in dialogue with Russia in pursuit of a diplomatic solution. However, their efforts have been met with limited success, and the situation in Ukraine remains volatile. At the same time, concerns have been raised about the EU's dependence on the US for security, particularly in the realm of defense procurement. The EU's reliance on American arms exports has raised questions about its ability to assert its own foreign policy agenda independently. The recent comments regarding Macron and Germany's perceived subservience to US interests underscore these concerns. While the EU may aspire to be a global player in its own right, it remains constrained by the geopolitical realities of the modern world. As the crisis in Ukraine continues to unfold, the EU faces a critical juncture. Its response to the conflict will not only shape its relationship with the US, but also define its role on the world stage for years to come. Only time will tell whether the EU can assert its autonomy and chart its own course in the face of external pressures.